So obviously, spoilers ahead. Star Wars Acolyte.
Yes.
Lots of spoilers ahead.
We're going to be going in on each episode and our overall thoughts, positives, negatives, etc.
TNMP, the Nerdy Misfit Podcast, with your hosts, Connor O'Neill and Matthew Hughes.
Yikers.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Nerdy Misfit Podcast.
My eardrums are on fire.
You're telling me. Hi everyone.
Why was that so loud in
I
my
don't
ears?
know. We were just
my-
recently testing a lot of new audio stuff, sound stuff on the Rodecaster Pro here, so that was a lot more louder than we expected.
Yes. Unfortunately, we apparently have some sort of weird buzzing issue. Very faint buzz. Which is unfortunate, and we apologize if you guys hear. We are working on it. Matt's working on it.
I'm working on it, guys. I'm working on it.
It's either we deal with it or we
don't.
well, we sound like we have a cold.
Like robotic underwater.
Yeah, that's kind of our options at the moment. We do some fiddling. Now I'm deaf from the opening. Rip headphone users for me. But here we are. Another Wednesday, another episode of the Nerdy Misfit Podcast.
And we're talking about something that we haven't talked about in a hot minute.
Yeah, it's true. We are talking about something that we haven't talked about in a hot minute, and that is
The Star Wars universe.
Disney Star Wars.
Disney Star Wars.
It's almost it's its own thing now.
It is. It's so funny because people are like, oh, there's Legends and then there's Disney canon.
I mean, that's true though.
It is true. It's, not the end all be all.
But here we are. We're at the Acolyte. The end of the Acolyte happened. But Matt and I have both watched it.
Season came out for a week ago. Yeah, so obviously spoilers ahead. Star Wars Acolyte.
Yes.
Lots of spoilers ahead.
We're going to be going in on each episode and our overall thoughts, positives, negatives, etc.
Exactly.
I guess my first question is, were you excited for the Acolyte?
Yeah. I was excited for the Acolyte because I read some of the High Republic books. I've read a good amount of them. Obviously, there's a bunch I still haven't read. So me finding out that one of my favorite characters from the High Republic show was going to be live action, I was excited to see High Republic lore come to the live screen.
Yeah.
I was excited.
Okay. Did it?
No.
Okay.
No, it did not live up to my expectation.
Okay.
And we're going to get into that.
Yes.
But so before we go through it, were you excited?
Yeah, I was excited. I was just excited for something that wasn't like Skywalker
Saga, yeah.
Which is nice. We're going a little bit further in the past. Honestly, go even further. There should be no characters that we really know from the original series. Even though technically we didn't see him, we saw one character that potentially some people may have not been happy about that we saw that was alive, that potentially should not have been alive.
We'll get into that.
We also did see a certain someone at the very end who probably should have realistically been seen a lot more considering some of the actions that were going on throughout this series.
We'll get into that, yeah.
But I would like to go even further.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I speak for a lot of people when I say, like,
Darth Bane, Darth Revan. Yeah, Rule of 2, pre-Rule of 2.
No, there was Rule of 2. Rule of 1. And the 2.
And of the many! Yeah, so let's get right into this. I'm just going to read the credit roll.
Okay,
that
sure.
was off the beginning there. 100 years before the rise of the Empire, it is time of peace. Well, I'm going to redo that because I don't know what happened there with the audio. 100 years before the rise of the Empire, it is a time of peace. The Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic have prospered for centuries without war. But in the dark corners of the galaxy, a powerful few learn to use the Force in secret. One of them, a lone assassin, risks discovery to seek revenge. And that is what happens. Roll credits right at the beginning of episode.
Jump in.
Episode 1, Lost and Found. And the thing is that overall for this episode, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, no, it was okay episode.
I think it was a okay setup to be like, okay, this is the characters we're getting introduced to. I mean, I didn't really see the ending to be like the end of the first episode being like, oh, like twin sisters kind of thing. I was like, okay, didn't fully expect that, I guess.
Yeah, okay, I can see where you're coming from.
I think it was an okay setup to start. Not saying it was great. It was an okay setup. I mean, I have in my notes here seeing the Neo-Modians right at the begining. I was like, oh, it's the Trade Federation. Like this gamey Phantom Menace vibe, and I think like my nostalgia
They had a
kicked
completely
in.
different accent than Phantom Menace.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
I mean, they could be from a different region.
Could be different.
It could be a whole bunch
sub-race
of reasons.
Sub-race of Fishman, okay? Not
I know
all
people
Fishmen
like to
sound
also
the
just
same.
hate on Disney because it's so easy. Because
Yeah.
they have movies to go back to be like, hey, we're doing this race of people. This is what these race of people sounded like.
Exactly.
But
I mean, I have like
sometimes it's just, there's some things are just so easy, and then Disney still misses.
I mean, I thought it was kind of. I have this in my note. I was surprised that there wasn't a sand planet right off the bat.
Yeah, true.
I was like, oh, that's new. And it ended up being on the. Like, we saw different planets and everything like that. One of the planets we've only ever seen in Clone Wars, so it's cool to see returning planets, I guess, if you want to call it that way.
Or live action versions of, yeah.
One of the Padawans was the actors that played X-23.
Yeah.
So I thought that was okay.
There's a lot of actors. There was, the main actor for, I guess we'll call him the main actor for Soul. He was from Squid Games.
Yeah.
But then we also had
the Jedi that died in the first episode. She was from The Matrix.
Torben was from Game of Thrones.
Yep.
So we had a good mix of some interesting actors.
I mean, the main girl, if you want to call it the main girls, that's just Rue from Hunger Games, who also was the main actress in Darkest Minds. That's the only thing else I can think of on the top of my head, in all honesty. But yeah, I think overall it was an interesting narrative to think that she was the Jedi killer kind of thing. I have this whole note of like you would think that they would take a Jedi killer prisoner a little bit more serious.
In some cases, I guess, but she also kind of just went with them.
Yeah, so like it just doesn't. That's where I was like, this is
came willingly.
interesting.
One character that I didn't really care for was Yord, and Yord was introduced as basically a childhood friend, right?
Yeah.
And he's just A-okay with like, oh, yep, she killed a Jedi, and I guess looking back when I made these notes, I was very critical of him being like, don't you have any faith in your friend? But I guess in a way, he is very by the book Jedi in terms of like, hey, this is what I've been told to do. No emotions, no attachments. Like, it doesn't matter if I knew this person or I thought I knew this person or however long I knew them. This is my job. This is what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a bit rugged that way, but I guess it was also some of his dialogue just made him very like irritable.
I mean, we can say a lot about that, about a lot of the dialogue.
I just could not stand him.
Yeah.
And I kept being like, why don't you care about this person or have any thought of your own of, hey, maybe she didn't do it? Because we have Master Soul who's straight up like, there's no way she didn't do it. Like, he knows right off the rip.
Yeah.
Or at least has faith. Now, you could also...
Yeah.
The one issue with Master Soul, which we'll get into as we go further down the episode list, is he's kind of a poor man's Qui-Gon. In terms of, he doesn't exactly follow exactly the Jedi teachings. He's kind of doing his own thing. But he lets his emotions kind of take over a lot more than Qui-Gon. And he's not as, I guess, stoic, where Qui-Gon is very stoic. Like, even though he might not be, and he rubs the Jedi Council and stuff the wrong way, they still respect him.
Yeah.
Where I didn't get as much feeling. Also, there wasn't enough budget to have more of the Jedi Council to even show up, I guess, even though this is the highest budget Star Wars content we've gotten in God knows how long. And they couldn't bring on other members of... We only got just Finestra. I guess they either I'm assuming we know other members of the council during this time via the books?
Yeah, so, well, the confusing thing is that this takes place after the books.
Okay.
So the way the books were like, there's like 150 years before Phantom Menace to 200 years or 250 years before Phantom Menace, and then it's like 100 years before the Phantom Menace, and this takes place about 75? I think
it's supposed to be 100.
Is it supposed to be 100 as well? So I might be getting the incorrect numbers then from what I just said there, but... Some of the people that should be on the Jedi Council that we would know would obviously be Yoda. It would be, I'm going to butcher some of these names, Yarlon Proof, who, if you've watched Phantom Menace, he is the very long neck one.
Yes.
And then there is another one, which he's just like a weird serpent bearded being who was like something Francois or something like that, who's off to the side.
Yaddle?
Yaddle is a Jedi Knight during this time, but she is not on the
Master,
council
not
as
a
far as I
counselor or
know.
master. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then obviously retconned into this one.
Kunamundi.
He has to be. I would assume, or maybe not. Maybe not.
No,
on the council?
that's the thing, is that a lot of people think that like, oh, it's a Jedi Knight, they're probably on the council, but it's obviously
It's just
not
because we know them as
the council members.
the high-ranking master
exactly
that they are.
right. So, and the thing is that should we just get into that?
No. We'll go
Way
through the
okay.
episodes. But I just, just in general, it was weird. We only really ever talked to one person, and as things got more and more dramatic for the Jedi, and more political, if you will, where obviously we see there's a point where we do see a conversation with a senator that we don't see the head, of the Jedi Council being Yoda. Because things start to take a turn, and you would expect that this is not normal within the world at this time of peace, if you will.
Yeah.
So you would think that Yoda would be getting involved, but maybe just another thing Yoda dropped the ball on.
Well, I mean, from what I remember from the High Republic books, Yoda was not really present too much. Like, so there was a part where Yoda went missing for a while. There's a part where he was focused seriously on like teaching the younglings on a different planet that wasn't Coruscant.
Okay.
So from the lore that I personally know, I wasn't like too upset that Yoda wasn't there, because again, I don't know if Yoda was on the council at this time. And that's what people have to keep in mind, is that Yoda was obviously around, but he wasn't important to what the audience knows as.
Right. I think they also wanted people to focus on the new characters as well and not have this crutch of a
Exactly.
But he still is important.
Yeah, he's a fan
problem.
favorite. Obviously, he's such a big person when it comes to.
Well, and he's just important for Jedi in general.
Yeah.
And in this time era, this is what I mean by, if we go further and further back, yes, you may disappoint people who are fans of the books, whether that is a Disney canon or whether that is a Legends or a video game, right? If you go far enough back, at least we don't have that any of the movie characters to worry about anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Just save yourself, if you will. But yeah, episode 1 wasn't too bad. It did set up things okay. I do think killing the Jedi early was both good. There's positives and negatives to it.
The positive is that it pushes you into the story right away. You're like, okay,
you're jumping right in, and you kind of see the level that we're dealing with. Like, very skilled, right? Very skilled assassin. Hand-to-hand combat was solid. Even just the idea of like the trickery of taking advantage of an innocent to attack the Jedi. The only thing that I will note is tiny little throwing star throwing
so
knife.
We can just call them shurikens.
Throwing knife, whatever you want to call it. Killed a Jedi in the chest, but lightsabers, those can't kill people if they pierce the body.
And that concludes our episode.
if we look at some of Disney's
past,
turns out only Qui-Gon can die from that.
Yeah, sorry, Qui-Gon.
But on to episode 2.
Episode 2 called Revenge/Justice.
There were some cringe scenes in this one.
There's some cringe scenes. We'll get into Torben's character in a bit, because I know that's what a lot of people had issues with. I think you're not the biggest fan of Torben character.
I'm not the biggest fan of Torben. I also think the decision was very weird, because obviously we see Torben meditating and taking the vow.
Yep.
And then just to off himself was very bizarre.
I think it was bizarre for episode 2, but when we get the flashbacks later on in the season,
it helps make it a little bit more sense, but still to be taking that vow in 10 years. Yeah. And then just,
I mean, it's the terrible way to look at it, but if you can't live with yourself being part of the decision for that, and then you come face to face with the person that you know, like it's up for interpretation.
Yeah,
I see both sides.
I just think, why wait 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. If the guilt is that bad.
Well, you try to meditate about it to understand it, I guess. I just have a right at the note. It goes, literally just goes, I'm sorry, but right at the beginning, how does no one sense someone who doesn't belong in the Jedi Temple? Like, she opens through the door, and then she's just sneaking, and everyone's just walking around, like, nonchalant. I'm like, how do you...
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you not sense, like, someone there not sense it, you know? I think I said the fight scenes were overall okay, not too much of a lightsaber battle, which is kind of different than what we're so used to when it comes to Star Wars overall. Interesting to see different ways to use the Force. Not fully sold in the series yet at this point. I mean, seeing a Wookiee use Force powers was kind of just funny to me. Like, it was almost comedic, because I'm like, this doesn't feel...
Overall, the episode was a little forgetful. I think the only thing that is memorable is the attacking the force field scene.
Yeah.
Which was a little cringy. Mm-hmm. It didn't look good. The other thing is, the killing of back-to-back Jedi when we later obviously learn the revenge mission is 4. Well, we learn that's 4.
Yeah.
And we kind of figure who the other 2 are. But it just is very quick. And, like, why are we supposed to care?
Exactly.
Why do we care? Like, okay, so 50% of the Jedi that is the goal. What was the one twin's name? May?
Yeah.
Her goal is already 50% done. And we don't care. Why would we care?
Yeah, exactly.
We have no feelings towards any character at this point, realistically. I mean, the only characters you might have some...
Soul a little bit.
Yeah, like Soul. Like, we've met Yord. So I guess you could say Yord, Osha, and that's it?
Yeah, Osha, Soul are the 2 consistent characters at this point. Well, no, and what's his face? I don't even remember his name.
The droid.
No, not the droid. The is it Yord?
Yeah,
That's
Yord.
what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, the friend, right? That's what I was saying. Because we do see Yord again, and at least this time he backs her up, where he's like, "Oh no, she didn't kill him. I was here." Overall, I didn't think episode 2 was much.
Nothing special.
It's just
about episode 2.
There hasn't been any development. There's I just don't understand why we would care.
Yeah, I think from like a hardcore Star Wars fan, you're like, oh, it's interesting to see the Barash vow shown other than out of the comics.
In the comics, yeah.
For those who don't know, that is what Torben's doing, where he's like when he's floating in a silent state, basically not talking, and he's chilling there. That in the comics, it was introduced in a Darth Vader comic, I think, and it was just called the Barash vow.
The Barash vow, yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen it a couple other times throughout Legends. I think once or twice in Legends, once or twice in continuity with Disney. But yeah, moving on to episode 3, we have episode 3, which is called Destiny, which is the prequel episode.
I actually think I would have been okay if this episode just happened at the beginning.
I think this would have been better as episode 2.
Like,
then I would have understood and cared for the characters.
Episode 1, the only real twist is that, they're twins. It's not, other than that, it kind of doesn't matter. So, honestly, I would have been okay if it went more of the cliche storytelling, being like, this is what happened in the past, and now this is where we are.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because the only reveal from episode 1 is that, 1, they're twins, and then obviously you learn that one of them is supposed to be dead. But here we go. We jump back into the past, if you will.
I'd literally just say twas fine.
It was, I don't know.
I mean, it's cool because obviously when you get to the cultiness of Star Wars groups in lore, we've seen them in Clone Wars with like
we've seen different groups of
the Night Sisters. Yeah, and I think they definitely took inspiration from the Night Sisters because during later in the season when they try to attack the mother, she like does the weird vanishing thing, and that's from Night Sisters and Legends and stuff. But for this particular episode, I mean, it felt very cliche that it was the 2 main characters, May and Osha, was very much the concept of yin and yang, and that is told throughout the entirety
One's good, one's bad.
Yeah, and then it's the understanding that there's a little bit of bad and the good and the good and the bad.
You need one another and
exactly.
balance and all that. And
Too
yeah, for a lot of people online had a lot of issues with this episode. Now, I'm not gonna be super nitpicky towards the thought process of how another culture interprets the Force.
Mm-hmm.
I know that some people were nitpicking that. I think that it's cool that that a different people would have a different view on it, and obviously there are people who don't like the Jedi, and
plain and simple.
Obviously there was a lot of hate, you could say, or malice in the words when the one mother is speaking about the people who use it as the Force.
Yep.
You can definitely tell that she's not a fan of obviously the Jedi. She never says the Jedi, but obviously
you know who she's talking
heavily
about.
implied. I didn't mind this idea of the string where she's like, you tug on it. And what I disliked was that, and this happened in the show a few times, was the contradiction later in the same episode.
Yeah.
Which is she's basically dissing the Jedi, talking about how it's the Force, like they're using it and that they're, taking it as their own. And then she talks about how it's not like that. It's like a string and you don't control it. But then like 10, 15 minutes later into the episode, she talks about how Osha and May have to take the string and wield it to their to change their destiny or whatever. And you're like, what? But I thought you couldn't do that.
Yeah, it just contradicts itself. This is also the episode where we see a hooded figure off to the side, kind of watching everything, which could indirectly be important.
We'll discuss it later. I feel like that's fishing a bit, to be honest, but it could be.
Yes, but no. Like it's
hard to say.
It's hard to say because I feel like there is certain like Easter eggs that happen throughout the show where I'm like, are we looking into this? Or are we not looking into that enough?
And I will say, when I first watched this episode, I was very critical of a lot of things, but we do end up getting a repeat of the episode, which has good and bad things in itself. Bad things being there was a lot of used content we already saw, which was dumb. But that did actually explain some things that I disliked from the episode. So that was nice to see in that later episode. But from this first time seeing this episode, obviously we have the Jedi showing up to take the two kids. Yeah. But these kids are already way past the age in which the Jedi would
steal children.
Well, if we want to try and be nice, ask permission and say they're Force sensitive and they're going to help save the world and whatever. Protect the universe.
Yep.
But they're past the age. So they would have just left them.
Yeah.
Realistically. And obviously, for some reason, Soul has some crazy attachment to these girls he just met.
Particularly, yeah.
Which makes, even when it's explained, it still doesn't really make sense. That he would go this far for it. One thing I didn't like was you see May start the fire.
Yep.
And it feels like 20 seconds. Like she probably didn't even have enough time to get to the courtyard of this place.
Yeah.
And everyone's dead. And I just remember being like, what WTF?
How did that happen
on?
so
also,
fast?
How does something completely made out of stone and rock just catch on fire? That was weird.
Yeah.
That was very bizarre. There was also a fire in space, which people was also really mad about in episode 1, which we didn't mention. I saw a lot of uproar about, there's no fire in space. But,
yeah, sure.
Well, if we're being nitpicky.
Yeah.
But, so obviously I have down in my notes, I'm like, are these Force conception children? Obviously we learned that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
I have hiding kids from being taken from the Jedi, ? Like, obviously, they're concerned that the Jedi are going to try, which apparently they are.
Yep, clearly.
I put a note saying, is this ruining the Chosen One? Or showing that, just a way of showing, like, there are more cases of characters that have been
I mean, you can do the cliche thing where, we've seen this in different fandoms where you're like, oh, this is the child of the prophecy. Just kidding, it's not. I mean, if you compare Harry and Neville, the only reason Harry is the child of the prophecy in comparison to Neville is because Harry's parents' house was closer.
Fair.
So, like, if you use the same logic to this, I'm like, yeah, obviously there's possible that other people have been created using the Force. it's not just one single child in the galaxy since the dawn of time. Like
Semantics, if you will.
Yeah, like that's me obviously like playing devil's advocate. But I do think in a way this took away from the concept of
Everyone's
Anakin,
very
for sure.
passionate about
Yeah.
obviously Anakin.
Yeah.
He's a fan favorite, Darth Vader fan favorite, and this does take away from a little bit of his just godly stature, if you will, in terms
Yeah.
of the lore of the Jedi, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the episode was okay. I did find that the kid actors are not. They didn't feel the best.
A little
Very
rough. They're
raw,
definitely
like,
kid
Yeah,
actors.
tough to cast kid
Yeah.
actors in general.
Before we move on to episode 4, I do want to jump back to episode 2 for a quick sec, because the importance of episode 2 is we get introduced to Kymir,
Mm-hmm.
who is like the guy who has hired May to go kill the 4 Jedi, like helping him out.
Helping
that?
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're talking about the guy that took
The
over
supplier.
the,
with
took over the
Polosine.
apothecary,
Yeah.
where he was not. See, I saw some people hating, and they clearly missed that he took over the apothecary from someone. Obviously, meaning that he probably
Killed him, yeah.
and he was just like instead there.
Yep.
And yeah, he made the poison to kill.
Yeah, exactly. Which, first seeing him in a role like that felt very weird, because I've only ever seen him in one other show before,
Okay, and what show's that?
The Good Place.
Okay, yeah.
He's the silent Buddhist
Oh yeah,
character, and then obviously who later on reveals to be obviously a different type of character in The Good Place.
yeah. No spoilers.
No spoilers. But it was just very interesting to see him play a very different role.
Yeah, he's a very throughout the show he's very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like I'd mention him now before we get into episode 4, which is called Day.
So my notes on this is forgetful. Nope.
Do you remember what happened in this episode, or?
Yeah, this is when they get to the Wookiee.
Yeah.
First get to the Wookiee planet.
Yep.
That the Wookiee is hiding on. It's not
Yeah,
a Wookiee
Kofar.
planet. It's a planet in which the Wookiee is hiding
Yep.
on the planet.
Yep.
Because once again, another exiled Jedi that maybe you could argue have a little bit more caring for,
Yeah.
but not really, because you still didn't really get much about that group.
Yeah.
That showed up to.
You only care about
save or
3 of the
protect
Jedi
the
that are in
girls.
that battle. I agree with that. I mean, it was cool to see the Wookiee Jedi.
Okay, so yeah,
but,
that's all.
he's
That's all you
dead-
got.
He's dead. I mean, it was cool to see a Tainan tracker. So Basil, the little
yeah, I don't know. I thought that thing was weird and annoying.
That's fair. I mean, he's from a couple like expanded canon books, so that was really cool to see him.
He didn't do much. He was a really bad tracker. Like, obviously, he's more intelligent than just a dog, right? Like, that's the point. And he got out of view of the Jedi multiple times, like, in
Yeah.
terms of how is that helpful?
Fair.
Like, what?
Yeah. This is the episode where Kiara-Mundi appears,
Yes.
which I literally have a note which says, which honestly isn't the end all be all. When you have lore, which is legends versus canon, it can become complicated. Because I was watching this video, that guy was like, he's like, listen, because there was issues with a couple of the big Star Wars communities. They took away the birthday of this off the one website. And there was a
Literally,
bunch of
as people were
controversial-
complaining about it while the episode went live, though.
Yeah.
So it was, like, to try and retcon it.
Yeah, definitely. But the thing is that I was watching this video, and the only spot where we have the lore of where or how old Kiara-Mundi is on the special features disc for Phantom Menace.
My issue, though, is
But-
not even necessarily with the fact that if he's alive. If he's
Mhm.
alive, fine, whatever. But then why would he say, the Sith have been gone for a millennia?
Well, that's the thing is I literally have like in like one of my notes is the fact that just because you have a red lightsaber does not mean that you're a Sith. So you can make the argument.
But you're saying that
here-
as you watch this episode.
well, yeah, I mean, like obviously Kiara-Mundi is known for that huge line
Yes,
where we haven't seen this in the millennia, la da 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 da, right?
but he has.
100%. Kiara-Mundi did never go to this planet, never sees.
He's
this
obviously
guy.
involved with this. See, so you're playing devil's advocate in a very like way in which you're kind of being dumb towards it, because
Well, I'm not like what I'm trying to say is the fact that Kiyonamundi obviously knew stuff was going on, knew that they were hunting a Jedi killer, right?
Yes.
They heard of this character known as the Stranger, whatever, right?
Right.
But they have never physically seen the Stranger before, so just assuming that they are Sith.
But we do end up getting confirmation that obviously he...
Are you talking about the line in episode 5?
I just
That
mean
he
in
says-
general, all the Jedi would, or at least higher ranking Jedi, would be privy to this information. Of that, there clearly is the potential for a Sith. Whether they said it wasn't, he would not deal with such absolutes in episode 1 if he had any knowledge of this, which he clearly did.
See, with that being said, obviously, completely understanding, like, obviously, if this was directly connected to the Sith, yes, right?
And how about a certain
But-
someone at the end of the series bleeding a kyber crystal?
That is the thing that frustrates me. That point.
So,
But we'll get
even
to
if
that.
we don't say this, let's say the Stranger is not a Sith.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely Sith potential in a certain someone character at the end.
Yeah, but again, who saw that happen? Who was alive during that scene?
I guess you just feel it with the Force since they all feel everything and they know everything.
But clearly they don't feel anything because someone broke into a Jedi temple.
That was that temple. They have weak Force security.
I'm just saying, like,
But every time we saw Vernestra go to there,
Yeah.
she obviously got...
she was able to sense things.
Yes.
Okay, but to her, like, obviously you feel a disturbance in the Force does not necessarily mean Sith.
Of course.
Like, you can, because he's a fallen Jedi does not mean he's Sith, for example, right? Because someone taps into, like, that's saying, like, anytime Qui-Gon ever pushed into the dark side of the Force, that
that
means
he's
Qui-Gon Sith.
or yeah, we have many of the people on the council as well.
That
Mace Windu.
dabbled towards the dark side of the Force. That doesn't mean that they're Sith.
I'm just saying, red lightsaber, I'm sure they hadn't seen a lot of those either. We have, obviously, moving... I just feel like there would be so much chit-chat between all the characters. Like, we see, obviously, a situation where May talks to Sol. We see situations where, obviously, Osha interacts with the Stranger,
Yeah.
and then Osha obviously ends up talking to Sol. There's definitely some form of communication passed along about this character, more than just, oh, he's got a red lightsaber. No, he's powerful in the Force. He acts like a Sith. He talks like a Sith in terms... That's important stuff, too.
Yeah.
The way he talks, obviously, he nukes all the people.
Yeah, he's clearly powerful in the Force.
So I just think it does kind of ruin the whole... It ruins the part for episode 1. There's no doubt.
I can see the
Or it
people's
makes him look
frustration
really dumb.
towards it. Yeah.
In which case, a lot of people don't want him to be dumb. But I guess in retrospect, the Jedi are dumb. Emperor Palpatine was there the whole time.
I mean, true that. I mean, you can also do it where because of what happens at the end of this season and what Vernestra Rwoh tells everyone, you can, in a way, be like, okay, well, obviously then false information was given to everyone.
Yep.
So
and like you said before, we don't know his ranking at this point.
Exactly.
He
And
could have just been a Jedi Knight.
He could have just been a random Jedi Knight. And the thing is, too, is that means, based on Vernestra Rwoh's report at the end, that there is no notes, no anything regarding this character known as the Stranger, right? So even if Kiyonamundi knew,
Or maybe he was just old and forgetful.
could be old, forgetful, could be like, well, no, like, he doesn't know all the information during this time, because again, he's a random
He
Jedi
could
Knight.
be a lower rank.
And also, he could just be like, well, we swore, because Jedi keep secrets, okay? You can easily say that Kiyonamundi was sworn to secrecy not to talk about whatever happened. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, obviously, is it bad to see Kiyonamundi in here connected? Because based on line he says in Phantom Menace, 100%. Can you see where that goes both ways? 100%. But moving into episode 5.
Yeah, this one ends on the idea that there's about to be a fight, which was cool. You're excited.
Seeing a yellow lightsaber was cool, because we don't really see too many of those.
I was going to mention, actually, in Disney's lore, because obviously blue sabers are kind of focused more on like someone who's a Jedi Knight, more focused on combat. Green is perhaps more
Force sensitive,
if you will,
yeah.
more focused on the
Purple,
the
your
will
Mace
of the
Windu.
Force or whatnot. And what's yellow? That a combination? Is that...
That's what I mean. Is I don't fully know if like
if there's like a set, like, okay, or is this just because they made Rey have a yellow lightsaber, so now we have to introduce that in the past, so it's not just some random BS saber color or something?
All right, let's go symbolism in Star Wars at PadawanOutpost.com.
Oh boy.
Blue lightsaber is most common. Represents the Jedi Guardian character.
Guardian, that's it. Yeah.
Representing courage, justice, and protection. Notable characters: Obi-Wan and Anakin. Green lightsaber, often associated with harmony, kindness, and spirituality. Is frequently chosen color by Jedi counselors and Jedi masters like Yoda, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Luke. Red lightsaber, obviously, whatever. Purple lightsaber is relatively rare and simplifies awe and power. Okay. Yellow lightsaber undergoes an identity change or takes on a special role. It represents energy, warmth, and optimism.
Well, I wasn't getting that from that character at all. I don't know, be right now.
Yeah, I didn't really get that.
I didn't get that vibe. Yord didn't pass that vibe check.
Yeah.
Optimistic? I don't think so. Maybe he deserved a green one. They made a mistake.
Yeah, I don't know how accurate this is. But anyways, episode 5 starts off with the end of the fight kind of bounces between a little bit of the fights throughout the episode.
5 is basically the slaughtering of Jedi.
Yeah.
It's both one, it was really cool to see actual lightsaber choreography. To be fair, we did see a little in Obi-Wan, but it was with Darth Vader, who we all know is not exactly the most agile in terms of lightsaber. It's just raw power at that point.
Yeah.
We did get some with Ahsoka, but it wasn't, I think, up to snuff. This one was okay. A lot of cool moves that people love to see, like the lightsaber boomerang throwing and stuff. Like some really awesome stuff.
I think it was different too. Like we saw 2 lightsabers versus 2 lightsabers. Like I think that is.
I thought his saber was also pretty cool.
With the mini,
the hidden like sheath kind of inside of his saber. I
think that was interesting. I don't think. I think it was a decent reveal for the villain. Like it wasn't entirely predictable that the dude like it.
Yeah, and the helmet's creepy.
The Magneto helmet. That is my biggest thing about this.
The anti-force helmet. But I guess it's true because there are anti-force helmets.
There is.
When he explains it later, you're like, oh,
I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
I guess he. But is it because he's force sensitive and like keeping things out, or just because he wants to look edgy? Hard to say.
Yeah, this is also, there's a couple of things to take from this episode where like they're talking. I think Saul's talking to him and he's like, well, the Jedi could call me a Sith.
Yeah, he's like, they could say this. And then he also says stuff like, you seen my face, I need to kill you all now.
Yeah. Which to me, that feels more Knights of Ren, but then we still don't have, I don't read the comics, so I don't know how much info we even have on the Knights of Ren in the grand scheme. So me seeing this helmet, I'm like, oh, maybe this is more connected to the origin of the Knights of Ren.
Yeah, I had that down as my notes as well.
But I don't know. My thing for here is seeing like the Padawan last as long as she did. I was more shocked.
I think you're just being critical about that. I think
I am because the rest of them were like the Jedi Knights.
Jedi Knights, but she could have. We don't know. This is the problem. So many of the characters we don't have a lot of information about. She could be S tier level with lightsaber combat. We have no idea.
Like Vanestra Rowe in the book, she was a Jedi Knight by the age of 15.
Yeah, exactly.
So like you never know really.
We just don't have the information. But I liked her as a character overall. I thought she was kind of.
She was most developed of the supporting characters.
Yeah, for sure.
Because she lasted the longest.
Yeah, and I liked her lightsaber duel. I liked the idea of when she's caught off guard, she's on the defensive, she's almost being overpowered. But then once there's like a pause, like a lull period where she's able to catch her bearings, and then she's able to kind of
keep going,
keep up as much as she could. Obviously, she can't all the way, and that's where the sheath blade is revealed, and she gets wrecked.
Yeah. I think too it was interesting to see like Jedi Knights like fighting and then their lightsaber just kind of acting a little bit haywire.
He hit their sabers.
Yeah,
right.
There
was a lot of broken sabers, more than I've ever seen in terms of
agreed,
countering and breaking the saber.
Yeah,
a lot of it
kind of helps.
Also, a lot of hand-to-hand combat in this show in general. Like more than I think I've ever seen hand-to-hand combat in Star Wars before.
You want to know what it's called?
Yeah, sure. Hit me with what it's called.
Force Fu fighting.
Force Fu.
Indara is a Jedi Master proficient in Force Fu fighting. Yep, that's a thing. which sounds both more lame and more cool than it is. Yeah.
But it did. There, some of the scenes were cool with it. It's just,
I think in the last episode, it was cool.
just felt like there was a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I would understand if it was only coming from May, whose kind of goal was you need to kill these Jedi Masters without using weapons. Okay, makes sense. But Soul did a lot of it as well, and you were like, huh. Was it... It's just, I don't know. I just didn't... I thought it was weird. Obviously, we see him. Yeah, he pretty much just runs the show on all the Jedi that are on, at this. At this time, it's also revealed who he is.
Yep.
Which I kind of predicted as we were getting closer to this point.
It would make sense.
Yeah.
I still think it was a decent reveal, though.
Once the Wookiee was dead, I knew. That's when I was like, okay, no, there's no doubt now. It has to be him because there's no way the Master would be there without being there.
Yeah, exactly.
So that, and I don't know, I kind of liked his overall demeanor and
his switching character from being like the idiot to like,
yeah,
no, I'm actually the
and he kind of had like
and
he had like a little bit of smug and like I'm better than you.
I mean, I thought he was a good actor for it.
Yeah, good actor. The bug scene was weird that like got him to raise up because then he just came back down eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was cool from like just expanded like planet lore of seeing different creatures and stuff. I thought the bugs around the tree that were attracted to light at the thing, I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. But
yeah,
any other notes from this one?
I had does claim to be a Sith in his own weirdish way.
Yeah, you like indirectly. He's like, well, they could call me a Sith. But you're like, but are you? Are you a Sith?
Oh, we had because this is where the sisters actually can communicate.
Yeah.
In episode 2, they see each other for the first time.
Yeah.
But this is when they actually talk again, and I believe it's May that says, they brainwashed you. They turned you against me, and I was like, they're reusing a lot of lines from.
You turned her against me.
Yeah. So obviously, we can say it's like a nice little tip of the hat to OG Star Wars. If I
think what Torben says, I've got a bad feeling about this at some point.
Yeah, we've got a couple of those. Yeah,
you're like, yeah, we get it. But yeah.
Obviously, big sad. This is also when Yord also bites the dust.
Yep.
Didn't really care that much, even with this being episode 5.
Yeah. At this point, you really only care a little bit.
I did care about Jecki.
Yeah.
Probably because I thought that her design was cool. And I kind of liked, like you said, we had probably the second most from her at that point in terms of character. So
she is a rare, like a super rare race of alien too, where she's half human, half. Let me pull it back up here. Jecki is half human, half Thelan, just like Rastal Sant, a background character from Return of the Jedi. So we've only ever seen one other version of her alien race.
My last note for this episode, which will lead into 6, is I was similar to your issue with number 2. Is I was very annoyed at how Soul did not recognize the sisters being swapped.
Yeah,
because we're supposed to believe that he has this connection or special connection
to them,
right? Like or it's at least built up like, oh, he cares so much for Osha and he has this connection with her. So why didn't he notice that it wasn't Osha on the ship with him?
Yeah.
When May switches
places.
Why did it
take him so long?
And I guess you could say like he just went through that fight. That's stress. That's so much questions. A lot of things going on in your brain. Hard to keep everything straight.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's just like it's supposed to be built up this deeper, more bigger connection idea, and just I don't know. Yeah. I felt like that was a bit.
That's fair. Moving on to episode 6, one of the better episodes. I got a lot of weird notes for here. But like we finally got an episode exploring the villain, the smuggler, the stranger, Kymir, like a little bit of his background.
But the issue with this is he went from episode 5, I need to kill you all because you've all seen my face, to now he's just like, oh yeah, so this is where I live.
Yeah,
and
hey,
oh
this
yeah,
is
I'm just
where I
welding my
live."
helmet. This helmet's like, one
Yeah.
of your kind of like the training helmet. Haha. I'm gonna go swim naked in front of you, knowing you're there.
Yeah, it was a little weird on that.
There's
regard.
also a lot of sexual tension. There's a lot of
yeah,
weird
you have that in
sexual,
one of your notes, but there was a lot of weird sexual tension at some parts.
which overall in Star Wars there really isn't
Should
much.
it be because it's totally against the Jedi code?
So, there's very odd. But yeah, go on.
I'm just gonna read this. I'm gonna read through all my notes here. Yeah, basically, it was cool to see a bit of a backstory with him, knowing him that he used to be a Jedi, and then kind of his master failed him. La da da.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
The light whip was purely used for shock value for the audience.
I don't even know a shock value.
Well, it was just like, oh, cool, here,
fan
and then
service.
that's it.
Just fan
It was
service.
fan service. Everyone hated it. Like everyone was so like they're like,
Oh
this-
wow, you killed that bug. Showed it.
yeah, cool.
And also, is that very Jedi to
No.
just off a bug?
Yeah.
It's a living creature. It's one with the Force, Like, can't she just stop it with the Force and be like, go?
My two big notes of this is, why does the audience care about this at this point? I feel like there has been overall character development for the characters. Having Saul wanting to say something for 16 years is something, sure, but now we have to wait another episode to hear it.
Yeah, they definitely. We know that Soul's hiding something. We know that everyone's hiding something.
Yeah.
Why else would all of them feel so
Classic
guilty?
Jedi.
So obviously, at this point, I was already.
Like, just tell us what it is. I'm over
Well, I already
it.
knew. We
Yeah.
already knew that obviously the reason those witches were dead was because of the Jedi.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So, just tell us.
Mhm.
Like, the only thing I was curious about was how May survived. That's the only thing that I
Yeah.
wanted an answer for. I didn't really care about everything else.
And then the music during the credits like seemed very familiar to me for some reason. And then I was like Googling about it, and it's Kylo Ren's theme, which makes my Knights of Ren thought even more plausible. I'm like, okay, clearly there's a bigger, like, was that just supposed to be an Easter egg for nothing?
I guess.
Where I'm like, okay, like that's when I was more on the board of like, okay, this has got to be connected to Knights of Ren. But obviously,
So my first note on this is, I don't see how the headmaster of the Jedi is not involved at this point, or mentioned.
yeah,
I can understand. Okay, yeah, Yoda may be high budget because we need to have CGI. We don't want to bring a puppet or whatever the reason.
Mhm.
Fine, but to not be like, I need to bring this up to the headmaster, or to like, I'm gonna bring this up to Master
Yeah.
Yoda. Like, we cannot hide. We need to tell Master Yoda about this, because at this point, in history, I'm sure Jedi aren't just dropping like flies.
I mean, post High Republic, this is the Nile, which is just a bunch of pirates that killed a bunch of Jedi through. But yeah, again, that's expanded lore. Like someone who doesn't read
Yeah.
the books, you wouldn't know.
But that's what I'm
So-
saying. Like, at this point, and like you said, this is also after.
Yeah.
We know that it wasn't pirates, right?
Mhm.
So, and Yoda does have a pretty large affinity to the Force. He would feel stuff like a good chunk of the Jedi being killed.
Yeah.
So I just feel like at this point, he'd probably be involved. I understand hiding it from the Senate. That's fine.
Yeah.
I get that. You don't want to seem like the Jedi can't be counted on, or there's issues.
Trusted, etc. Yeah.
We've seen that. We've seen that already in
Mhm.
the movies. But I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like he would probably be like, it would be a bigger issue. It would be escalated at
Yeah.
this point.
But I think does having Yoda in this show contradict one of your points earlier, where if Yoda's more in the show, it more connects us to the Skywalker saga?
It wouldn't really connect us more to the Skywalker saga because he lived for so long.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Right? Like, that's the issue. He lived for so
Mhm.
long, and at this point we're committed. We're in this story.
Yeah,
You can't just ignore the existence of Yoda. He was there.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, we're literally bringing potential characters that shouldn't have been there
yeah,
that are from the Skywalker saga. So he was there,
Mhm.
and a much more stronger version of him, you could argue, because he's
Yeah.
much younger. But I just think that he should be, and we should have been introduced to more people in the council at that time, because this is
yeah,
it should have been escalated. I did also mention that I'm like, I love how this man goes from just killing a small platoon of Jedi, like, to just this chill dude vibing.
yeah. He's like, I'm just gonna take a bath.
I'm taking a bath.
Just killed some
oh, it's
people. I'm just
good.
gonna take
Like,
a bath.
Yeah, if
This
you,
is my
you can
crib.
go ahead and take my ship. It's going to take you a while to swim to
yeah.
it. I suggest you wait till the tide. Until then, I mean, we can enjoy a meal together.
You're
like-
bored. You want to just like put my helmet on?
Yeah.
Like, you do you, girl.
And then, yeah, I also, similar to you, I said, one day Soul will tell us what happened.
Yeah, I'm like, well,
I said, word for word, one day Soul will tell us that the Jedi killed those witches and caused the whole craziness to try and snag those girls.
Yeah.
And then
Ridiculous.
whip for a bug. Sag. What the heck did all that budget go to?
Literally though, like, what makes her such a cool character in the books is the fact that she's a 15-year-old who like did this whip thing herself and like figured out her connection.
What did you, at this point, how did you feel of the character though? Like,
I was over it. I was like, this. She did my character dirty. But
she felt
to
like
be fair,
she was so important, but she did nothing.
Yeah.
But
To
she
be
was doing
fair,
nothing.
I haven't read the most recent books with her in it, so I don't know if this is how her character is now,
If
where
that's
she's
how
like
yeah.
Yeah.
I also thought that the acting for her was very
Plain.
stiff.
dry.
Stiff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
On to episode 7.
Episode 7 called Choice. I'm just gonna read my sentence here.
Yeah, you go.
I
ahead.
really didn't care about this episode. Was cool to see the mother going to smoke. This is from Legends from the Night Sister. Glad to see some Wookiee fights, I guess.
It was nice to see the Wookiee fight, considering it was kind of like, oh, I guess we won't see him fight
Yeah.
when we see him die already so quickly. So
It
I
looked
guess
good.
I'll take over on the episode.
Yeah.
I have a couple more notes.
This is a
Um,
forgettable episode because we've seen most of
I
it.
have, what is with the metal detector? And then once they're like, oh, we're trying to find a convergence. How is a metal detector helping you with that? Is this a convergence detector and you're looking in the ground? What are you looking for? That was weird. I guess it was just to make it look busy. I have no idea what that was.
Yep.
I said this episode has a few major issues. One is just a repeat of episode 3 from another angle. And by that, sometimes it's cool to see clips that are from, but the problem is we saw repeats of entire scenes.
Yeah, just from a
Which-
different point of view.
Once again, what's going on with this budget? You're literally showing us same stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little lazy is all. I thought that they definitely go a lot more in depth on kind of making Anakin less special feeling as we get more backstory of the sisters,
Yep.
where they're not actually sisters. It was one being
One
split,
consciousness.
yeah, split into two.
Split into two.
And then I was like, oh, we also have word for word ripoffs from the Phantom Menace with convergence being mentioned and the metachlorine count being mentioned in the pretty much identical way that Obi-Wan says it. And I was just like, okay, so we really are kind of hurting the whole legacy of Anakin
Yeah.
before Anakin is even Anakin, before he even exists.
Yeah.
So that was a little unfortunate. I have here, but this is just more of a Jedi thing in general. I hate how high and mighty a lot of Jedi are. They're always like, just high strung in a way, that they're better or, and it's always the higher ranked Jedi that I feel that kind of come off this way. Like another one is even if we look at the prequel trilogy, Mace Windu is just like that as well. Like, no, like I know you listen to me. I'm better than you, and it's just, I don't know. Powerful Jedi seem like dicks.
I'm overpowered. Bow down.
The
to
more
me.
knowledgeable and more powerful they are, the more dick-like they are.
Yeah.
And this is another. There's examples of some of the more contradictory. Oh man.
Take a breath.
Looks 50 minutes into episode. Okay. But the contradictions towards some of the writing in this episode are very high.
Yep.
So if I scroll down, big thing is we've got Whiner McWhiner as a Padawan in Torben.
Yep.
Whining it up, I want to go home, whining all day, we can't go home until we find the proof of a convergence, whatever. Literally after they bug these witches, and it's obvious they cannot take the girls. They're too old, they will not be accepted, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
They contact the council, and what's her face? I don't even remember the name of the Jedi Master. She's like, okay, I need to contact the council. And she does so. And the council literally says, come back. Come back. They're like, don't leave those people alone. Come back.
Oh, you're talking about Indara.
Yeah. And okay, we're like, okay, they can go back. And that's literally what Torben wants. Torben wants to go back. But then all of a sudden, someone mentions that, I think it's Soul that mentions that the girls can be the convergence they're looking for because they're one entity split or whatever.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden Torben goes on a speeder to go and steal these girls. But literally, his whole purpose is he wants to go home, and he can just go home. He doesn't even need the girls. He can just go home. He was told they can go home from the council. What's going on?
Why?
Yeah, exactly. Why?
Yeah.
And then, so all I have down here, instead he goes to YOLO, steal the kids. I have
steal the kids.
I also have down here, so obviously from the different angle we see that only from the outside May looks super crazy when it turns out she's just a stupid kid.
Yeah.
She lights something on fire and then is shocked that things are on fire.
No, but to be fair, because then one of the mothers goes over to her and was like, yes, give in to your
Before
rage."
that, though, like she's stepping on the fire outside of the bedroom door, and then like it's like, yeah, you just spilled a bunch of like oil or whatever, and there's like, why are you shocked? Obviously, yeah, her one mom tries to build her up to get the anger and power going. Then the one thing that was really weird was the witches took over the what's his face? What's the name
Torben?
of the not Torben? They took over the Wookiee.
Oh yeah.
And there were some questionable scenes in that when a Wookiee probably should be able to tear some of as he's fighting his own Jedi, probably should have been able to destroy some of them in terms of physical ability. But if we ignore that, the clearance of the mind then kills all the witches?
Yeah.
Why?
Up for interpretation there. I got nothing.
Why? Why does that why? Is that because their connection severed? Is that because what's her face actually just straight up has the ability to kill people through the force, through the mind?
Why didn't your mind?
That was a bit felt lazy in terms of getting rid of the witches. Like what's the fast? Oh, we'll just have all of the witches are connected.
Easy
and
peasy.
they just get nuked because when it's severed, the connection severed.
Yeah.
Soul sacks one of the twins, the twin knowing, because then this is when Soul kills the mother.
Yeah.
Which was very un-Jedi like, very un-Jedi like, and he sacks one of the sisters. I wrote that because I was kind of memeing, but. In brackets, I put, why not just force save the girls instead of trying to hold up the two sections of the bridge? And then he proceeds to release the bridges and runs to the cliff to then use his actual hand to save Osha.
Yay.
Those were some weird,
weird choices, for sure.
Kind of felt like, hey, we really need you to... In our writing, we need this person to fall. We're going to make you make really dumb choices.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that. And then I have here, this is how much like I didn't care and we didn't get story. I wrote the Jedi Woman Master.
Yeah, I'm just reading that sentence
because
now.
I don't remember the names. And I wrote, was all high and mighty and kept going, we need to talk to the council. Let me get word on the council. She did at least 4 times this episode. And then all of a sudden... After all this chaos breaks out, caused by her own Padawan, by the way, if I just saying, she's like, so we're just gonna lie to the Jedi Council about what happened here. Like, yeah, why not? Yeah, that seems like a good idea. Don't tell them anything. Yeah, just lie.
Just ignore it. It's fine.
I didn't like that. I did not like that. They're just like, yep, we're gonna cover it up. And I don't see really why Corbin felt that guilty that he had to go on this 10-year. I thought that was a little dramatic.
I feel like there's some lore we're missing.
I want to say that maybe having his mind impacted by the witch had more effect on him than
That led
the situation, perhaps.
Then you can make that theory be more true because of Kalnaka going to be isolated and stuff too, like the Wookiee.
And also
So,
had its mind taken
yeah.
over in a way. It's just also they
We're
lie.
missing something.
They lie about this whole situation, but then does the Jedi Council not find it weird that both of these Jedi, one is like out in this random planet in the forest, and one is just permanently not talking?
I mean, there's
and stuff?
16 years in between.
But don't still
But
like,
also,
oh
yeah.
like this is weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
And then we get to the final episode
The finale.
called The Acolyte.
What? Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
So we can break this down a little bit. I have my own theories and stuff, but I say finally a good lightsaber fight.
I thought the lightsaber battles
Lightsaber
in
weren't
4 or
episode
5 were
5
We're okay.
decent. The Saul versus the Stranger, like Kumir, I thought was really good.
Are you
Sorry.
all right there, brother?
Yeah, just almost had a cough, so I try to like push it down.
You ate your cough.
Yeah.
Okay. You're a cough eater.
I think this is like where I felt like some of the good budget went. Like the battle was really good. Like them kind of coming out and like seeing like kind of a little bit of a slow motion. Like I felt the fight was really good. You saw more of the combat with the mini lightsaber. I thought that was good. It reminded me of the samurai fight that we see in like the anthology, like Star Wars Vision, like the samurai style one.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really good. My big thing is giant conversations between the sisters and Saul. Did we just give up on the fact that the bad guy is just standing over there, or is he just chilling?
At what point was this?
That's when, like, the two sisters and Saul are out in that big area, right? And then this is before the whole Kyber crystal situation. They're all
when
talking.
she's like baiting Soul into saying what like happened, and then
Right after that.
Okay.
Because the second sister comes out from hiding, and it's just Saul and the two sisters talking for like 5-6 minutes, and Kumir is just standing there.
Well, the stranger was very
He very much was intrigued.
he's accommodating.
But
and
yeah.
he wanted the rage to be built up between
Oh,
the two,
definitely.
right? So I think that's kind of his vibe. Like he's like, "Oh, I don't even have to do anything now."
Yeah.
I think that's kind of his idea.
We have, it was cool. I don't have this in the notes, but it was interesting to see the Kyber crystal bleed.
I do have that in my notes.
That was the first time seeing
have.
that in live
Got
action.
to see a Kyber crystal bleed.
Obviously, the Jedi were right. Her rage and anger were dangerous. LOL.
I mean, that is why she was removed
Yeah, it's
from.
true.
She had her attachments, and they were scared of her rage, similar to another certain someone, if you will.
Wait, why stop the connection there? Why don't we?
Also, the senator also basically predicts Anakin.
Senator also predicts Anakin. We also see a direct comparison because Vanessa Rose, she's like, yeah, he was like one of my Padawans. Like,
we get that, but when Vanessa's talking to the senator, he's all like,
oh yeah,
he's literally says, one of you Jedi are gonna go at what's gonna happen when one of your Jedi go rogue and get out of control. Like, what's gonna happen? And I'm just like,
wouldn't we like to see that?
That would never happen.
That could totally never happen.
I was like, man, this senator is he is before his time. He would have been a savior.
Hey, this teenager's kind of acting out. Do we think he's gonna kill everyone?
He's the OG Palpatine. Like,
yeah.
We don't need the
before Palpatine.
Jedi.
Exactly.
But he's not even a Sith that we know of.
That we know of.
That we know of.
That we know of.
That we
That
know of.
we have never confirmed nor deny that he do be a Sith man.
He could be the Palpatine before the Palpatine,
I mean, yeah.
which is technically Plagueis, who we see.
Yeah, we do see cameo of Darth Plagueis, the wise.
The wise.
Maybe not quite the wise.
Because
quite
Plagueis
yet.
also was heavily involved in as like was he a merchant or no? He became a politician, I believe.
Darth Plagueis.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, like he obviously was more hidden
Yes.
because his race was a little bit more uncommon. But obviously if you've ever seen Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith, I ever told you the story of Darth Plagueis.
Yes.
So obviously, but the thing is that if you've never researched about Darth Plagueis, you have no idea who that man is. Because if you don't know what Darth Plagueis looks like, that's just some weird bald man with some yellow eyes peeking out of the shadows with some weird fingers.
It's valid.
But even in my notes, I'm like, wait, is that like? Also,
I just mean
who is
that
hiding
I mean
in
that
the
he was
stone
like
area?
in Coruscant. He's like in that area. Like
Yeah, he was kind of connected to the government, obviously, and that's how Palpatine got involved and everything. So it was cool to see Darth Plagueis. It was interesting to see Yoda at the very, very end.
Was it?
Not really.
I was
like,
gonna say,
cool.
was it?
They
Even
acknowledged
nothing.
him, and we're gonna move on from that. The twist of the story from Vanessa Rose seems kind of odd, but like sets up the potential of the next season, especially with her seeing Yoda at the end.
The twist
with-
being that it's her Padawan?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't fully see that. I kind of half expected it to just be one of Saul's, because he makes a comment to Saul being like, "You don't remember me?"
Right.
So I'm like, oh, maybe.
But
But
she sees him without the helmet, and then she knows.
exactly. Well, I don't know if Vanessa Rose sees him. She senses him,
But she senses him when he doesn't have the helmet
Yeah.
on.
which I just have like my theory, and then I have a link to a character named Imri Kantoros, who is a character that pops up in the first book that Vanessa Rose is in. They're around the same age.
Okay.
And basically he is her Padawan in quotations, because his master ends up getting killed on the mission, and she takes him under his wing, and he automatically gets frustrated with it and taps into the dark side of the Force after his master is killed, and she tries to pull him back after a little bit and successfully does. But to me, I'm like, oh, that would right there could easily be him.
Mm.
Obviously, I haven't read enough of the High Republic books to know if Imri Kantoros is dead, alive, etc. But to me, that kind of fits the bill. I could easily see the stranger being this person, because if we want to do, if he's a Sith, is Chimere his name, or is that his Darth name? Is he Darth Chimere?
Oh,
You know what I mean?
interesting,
Like,
yeah.
do we know if that's his real name or not?
And obviously, seeing Plagueis proves that he is in fact a Sith, or on his road to being a Sith.
Yeah, there is a
And
potential to be
He's
a
the
Sith,
two. He's the second. He is
potentially.
most likely.
Most likely. The reason why I say not for sure is because if you look in Star Wars lore and in Clone Wars, where like Ventress was Count Dooku's Padawan,
Yeah.
and Count Dooku was Darth Tyrannus. So technically the rule of two was there, but Darth Tyrannus, aka Count Dooku, was also trying to train someone.
Yeah.
So you can say that like maybe this was someone else's Padawan, not directly connected to the Sith. Like, there's just too many unanswered. Obviously, I'm picking at straws.
I
right
don't
now.
think Plagueis
but-
is there, and it's just a coincidence.
No, I think he knew like.
They are in contact,
Yeah.
and whether he's an official Sith in terms of a Sith apprentice,
Mm-hmm.
hard to say. But
But again, the Sith was hidden for so long, right? So
well, and that's a lot of it's also due to someone like Plagueis'
Plagueis.
intelligence.
exactly. And
I
obviously,
don't call him Plagueis the Wise for nothing.
And obviously, by the end of this then does mean that this character, if we get a season 2, still, at the end of the Acolyte, this character has to die because
Correct.
there has to be Palpatine coming in.
Eventually,
Yeah.
yes.
And I have no idea how old Palpatine would be in this regard, because I don't fully understand when this takes place, like 100 years before Phantom Menace.
Yeah, and I can't recall Palpatine's age because
Yeah,
there's
not
a
on
certain
top of my
situation
head.
that ages him a bit.
Yeah.
What does he say at the council? He's like a brutal accident or something.
Yeah. Something
It's
like
deformed
that.
me.
Yeah. But yeah, you
But
can,
I've
do you
come
wanna,
back stronger.
Do you want to?
My resolve. Something like that.
Yeah. Approximately 100 years before the Phantom Menace
Yeah,
But
so still
anyways.
some time for Palpatine, I would say.
to be born,
Yeah, exactly.
if he's human.
And I don't recall the exact canon time, but I want to say he doesn't even meet Plagueis until he's like in his late teens, early 20s.
So this takes place. So Palpatine is born 84 BBY. 84 years before the Battle of Yavin. 65 years before the formation of the Empire. 65 years.
Okay. I have for
Anyways,
this
you can,
episode.
yeah, you can chat about yours.
I said I don't understand the stranger, his motives, his reasoning for keeping people alive. When he said, "Oh, they can see my face, no survivors," which I've mentioned already.
Mhm.
And I was like, but now he's chill with them all being alive, and this isn't just the sisters. I can at least see like, okay, we can use the sisters' rage, and maybe he's like, oh, the more people against the Jedi, the better. Maybe that's like his idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, Soul should have already been dead for a while. and he's been relatively chill around Soul because wants one of the sisters to kill him. Like I mentioned, the senator just casually predicting Anakin. I'm like, oh, did we just see Plagueis, or is this a Sith Lord we don't know? Obviously, the race looks like Plagueis' race.
He looks identical to Plagueis. It just makes sense if it's him.
And then I said, which I have mentioned at the beginning, that Soul is kind of like Qui-Gon, a little bit not quite in line with exactly what the
actor does take direct inspiration from Qui-Gon, because this is the actor's first English-speaking role.
He did great, too. And I really enjoyed about having an actor that English is not his first language is it gave the idea of, like, the Jedi are pulling from everywhere. Because whenever we get a human Jedi, they're always just, like, pretty American.
Yeah, very much so.
So it was nice to get a different accent, a different vibe.
I think
overall.
his acting added to the story, if anything.
He was definitely the best casted actor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I said he just does not keep a very calm mind. He's very reactive, emotional, very non-Jedi-like. I said, I don't understand how he even got a Padawan, let alone a Padawan that of such special circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
I thought was kind of odd.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did he have so much pull when he isn't even a master like Qui-Gon? Where Qui-Gon was a master, although never on the council because of his behaviors. He was a master, and he did have a lot of pull, but it did feel like Soul did have a good amount of pull, even though he just didn't have as much going on for him like someone like Master Qui-Gon.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought that was a little weird. I mentioned, obviously, Kyber Crystal bleeding was cool. It was cool to see it bleed, and it did just feel like it was kind of, I don't know, was it kind of fan servicey? Like, oh, she's mad. Like, it was aggressive. She did end up force choking and killing someone, which, okay, while holding the lightsaber, I could, from my understanding, it always felt like you needed, like, to be really, like, focusing on the crystal to make it bleed.
That's what I thought too, but then you can also make the argument that it was kind of cracked a bit because we see the saber break a little bit.
Sure.
So you can...
I just always just thought that it was like you're forcing the crystal to bleed.
Yeah, exactly.
You're imbuing it with the dark side.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do we know? I don't even know if Disney really knows.
I don't know if the director knows because that's a whole other thing. But
and then I had the mind wipe. I was like, what is this? Men in Black?
Yeah.
That was a bit weird. And then I'm like, so the answer to all this is lies. Is to lie again, lie to the Senate. I was like, Senate at least seems to be onto something in terms of the Jedi. The Jedi power and being corrupt.
Yeah.
Because they all just lie. The whole reason they got in the mess was because they were lying. Because four Jedi lied about an incident. And that's what caused this whole drama. And now they're like,
Vanessa Rose,
and now we have someone on the council who's like,
it was also Saul killed them all, and then he killed himself, and I gave him a traditional Jedi burial, burned his body. It was all Saul though. There was no bad guy. Nope, nothing. We also have a random child that has his memory wiped, so there's nothing. Sorry, guys.
Lots of lost respect for her, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what?
100%.
Horrible decision-making. And if Yoda is in the know, like, no wonder the Sith were able to take over. Like, my guy, like, come on. Get your crud together. And then I had Yoda seen as dumb, because he really should have already known everything that was going on from basically the start with the twins, let alone the garbage going on with the potential Sith.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that was obviously just to be like, hey, Yoda's here. See, guys, ha ha. We know you wanted to see him. Here he is.
Overall, I'm gonna give it a 5.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
It was nice to see proper lightsaber fights. There was actually was it peak choreography? Absolutely not. No. But it was nice to see some effort go into the choreography.
It was cool to see new things done with the Force.
Mm-hmm. Cool sheath saber.
Yeah, it was a little stab. if you made it this far, thanks for listening. Thanks for letting us rant about this
Let us
show.
know what you thought of the Acolyte.
Did you like it? Did you
Are
not
we being
like
too
it?
critical? We're not
Are we
even
not being critical enough, though? Are we?
we're not even crazy Star Wars
Yeah.
fans, and I'm noticing this stuff. That's why what makes it seem less great.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not someone who's read the books, I'm not overly like Star Wars is supposed to. For me, Star Wars has always just been this series. It's not this crazy in depth. It's a story about good and evil and
exactly.
balance, and it's just fun. It's fun. It's cool. That's
Easy
what Star Wars
peasy.
is to me.
It's just cool lightsaber battles.
Somehow it keeps getting worse. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So let us know what you guys thought. We do have a Discord. It'll be in the link tree down below. You can give us more in-depth thoughts. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to drop it down in the YouTube comments. Other than that, we do upload every Wednesday, the podcast, both here and on all the big podcast listening platforms. If you're not already, subscribe here, subscribe
everywhere,
and follow us everywhere, all of our socials, and leave a
comment.
Leave a review for us. It helps a lot, especially on iTunes if you're listening on iTunes, Apple Music.
Yeah.
I'm old.
And also, remember Anime of the Month, 91 Days. That episode will be coming out next week. If you haven't watched it yet, give it a watch. If you're excited to talk about it or hear our feedback, stay tuned for that.
I have watched it, and it was really good.
Pretty
So
good. It's a fun.
If you're not doing
episode.
anything in the next week,
Watch
highly
91
recommend watching it
Days.
so you guys can check out the episode.
13 episode, 12 episodes.
12 episodes.
12 episodes,
And a
91
bit.
days. It's on
Yeah.
Crunchyroll. Subbed,
Fantastic.
dubbed, whatever you want to watch it. Definitely recommend.
It's going to be a good episode, guys.
So stay tuned for that. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.
TNMP, the Nerdy Misfit Podcast. Don't forget to join the island by dropping a follow. Thank you, and see you next week.